Hi, I'm Taylor. I'm a late diagnosed autistic mom, and this is my channel, Mom on the Spectrum. I create resources for late diagnosed autistic adults like me, and today I wanted to share a little bit about how I knew I was autistic in the first place. So, first of all, I've always known that my brain was really different. Since I was, for as long as I can remember, I just feel, I just knew that the way I thought was not how other people thought. I loved to people watch, and I would kind of try to piece together how other people were making decisions or choosing to interact with groups. And I was very curious about what people came up with to say in conversations. How did they decide on that? What were they thinking? Like, what thought process got them there? And I had a very kind of pattern seeking approach to understanding the world. So I just remember always thinking, my brain is different. My brain is different, but I don't have the words for it. I did really well in school, so I didn't really need any additional resources or interventions to get me through. Looking back, I can see how, yes, those would have been incredibly helpful, and I was forcing my way through a lot of things to the point of stress and depression and tons of anxiety. But nothing was really flagged in the system because I checked all the boxes. I did everything I was supposed to do. And looking back, I can see how I used the routine and structure of the public school system to go under the radar. I didn't want people to single me out. I didn't want to be different. So I just followed the rules. I did them to the best of my ability, and I didn't cause a scene. But like I said, I did deal with a lot of depression, anxiety, overwhelm, especially in high school, to the point where family members are really concerned. Taylor seems really depressed. What's going on? Now I can see that I didn't have the words to understand my struggles. I didn't have the understanding to know when I needed to rest and when I was in burnout. I was chronically in burnout in high school because I was in all the top classes, doing all the homework, doing all the projects, doing all the band competitions, and I never really stopped to get the rest and the processing time that an autistic person needs. So this depression and anxiety came with me to college. Yay. And that's sarcasm for those of us that have trouble detecting sarcasm. And I remember finally going to see a counselor at TCU because I think this is what triggered it, honestly. I needed a certain class for my degree. I was a flute performance major, and I needed a music history class that only had 5 people in it. And I did not know this until the day I showed up to class. And the whole semester, it was going to be a small group discussion-based class. And all I knew was that I had to get out, and I had to get out as quickly as possible. I had never dropped a class before. I didn't understand what was happening. I just had so much stress and anxiety, and I knew that I could not do this. Now, all autistic people have different experiences. You might be autistic and think that that sounds like a blast, a small group discussion-based format for a class learning something that you love to learn about. But for me, that small group discussion is so hard to navigate. I did not yet have the skills I needed to understand socially how to participate in that group. So I knew that whether or not I could put this into words, I knew that instead of learning, my time in that class would be spent trying to socially navigate what was going on. And I had no idea back then that that's why I was freaked out, but looking back now, I can see that's why. So after that experience, I sought out counseling at TCU, and I just wanted help. I presented with anxiety, right? I'm so anxious, I need help. Well, the university counselors see this all the time. Yeah, you're anxious, you're in college, you're taking high-level classes, you have a lot of social commitments, you're in band, you have a scholarship that you're working to maintain. It makes sense that you're anxious. Well, she hooked me up to this biofeedback machine. I don't really remember the result of it. I just remember being told, hey, watch this screen, like see when your stress goes up when we talk about this. And here's some techniques for, bringing that stress level down. And, I could see on the biofeedback computer screen how it would help me to breathe through certain stressful things. Okay. Yes, this was a helpful skill, but no progress was made towards an autism diagnosis. So fast forward, I got married right out of college, and the anxiety came with me after college into my marriage. And I started going to counseling because, again, I had this anxiety, like this pent up just discomfort and constant dysregulation inside of my chest that I had no words for. And the counselor that I saw at that time suggested OCD. It really seemed to fit. During that time, I worked through a lot of obsessive thoughts, compulsive behaviors, and I really feel like I got a pretty good handle on some of those significant stressors in my life. But it still didn't explain the full picture. I felt like this helped a little bit, but I was still really struggling. Fast forward a few more years, I'm back in therapy. I mean, looking back over the years, I've just been in therapy. Please help. Going from therapist to therapist, like, here's my situation. And you know how long it takes to like invest in a new therapist, right? Like, here's my folder. I don't really have a folder, but they have to get to know you and understand how your brain works. So the next therapist said, yeah, there's a lot of ADHD stuff going on here. So worked through some ADHD interventions and some support tools and strategy. So I was thinking, yeah, this makes sense. It runs in my family. I can see the patterns, and knowing this information helps me feel a little bit better and know how to deal with the stress. Better, but still not the full picture. When my kids were born, this changed everything. Moms, you know, kids change everything. But there was something about my second born, my son. He was so different than my daughter was. He was very sensitive, and I mean that in the best way. He was so aware of every single change, every movement. He had to be in a very precise way. He had to have very precise feeding strategies. Like, everything about him was so different, and I didn't understand how he was so affected so easily by such small things. And so I somehow came across a book called The Highly Sensitive Person by Elaine Aron. So this was kind of my first foray into the world of high sensitivity and everything that comes with it. I wasn't yet introduced to the word autism, but it was pushing me closer. While all of this research was going on, I randomly came across this information that one of my friends from TCU was just diagnosed with autism. And I was so perplexed by this. We were very similar. She seemed to be very socially skilled. She was very talented. She didn't appear to have any deficits. You know, in my mind, autism would be very obvious. It would be like, oh, yeah, that person's autistic, or they act in this way. So yeah, that makes sense. There were no indicators here to help me make sense of this. It was just like, huh. Well, if she's autistic, then I must not understand what autism is. And I learned that one of the main things that pointed her towards this diagnosis was learning about a term called copy and paste behaviors. This is the idea that you watch other people and copy their behaviors and paste them into different situations. So watching, like I was talking about in grade school, watching other people interact with a group and then seeing what they say and kind of copying their actions and repeating it, pasting it in similar ways for myself. And when I heard that, I was like, doesn't everybody do that? And the answer is no, not everybody copy and paste. So then I realized maybe I don't know what autism is. So from that point, went into a deep dive about autism, learned so much before even telling a single soul that I thought it was autistic, because at this point, OCD, ADHD, anxiety, depression, at this point, I was so worried that I was just going to be shut down and laughed at. So I wanted to know that I know that I know that I know that I'm autistic. So by the time I was ready to come forward with this information, I knew a lot about it. And I actually sought out the same psychologist that my friend was diagnosed through, because I knew that she had a really good understanding of how autism presents in women and adults. And that's really important if you're considering an autism diagnosis as an adult, to make sure that you find the right person to help you with this. And I have a free resource guide that you can download. I'll put a link in the description, the Big Autistic Resource Guide. This is a continually evolving resource that has a lot of options for you to consider if you're interested in pursuing a diagnosis. So I saw this psychologist, went through a lot of testing. I detail that more in other videos on my channel, what that process was like. And sure enough, received an autism diagnosis. Totally changed my life, made sense of so much. There are so many feelings associated with this diagnosis: relief, but frustration, anger, grief, so much to unpack. But at the end of the day, this was a piece of information that shifted everything into focus for me, helped me have more grace for myself, more compassion, and really just want to show up more fully in life, because I finally understood why my brain was different. If you're looking for more support as an autistic adult, I have online classes that you can take on demand with tons of information to help get you started. You can find those at momonthespectrum.life/classes, and I will put that link in the description as well. Thanks so much for watching. Can't wait to share more with you. I will see you in the next video. Bye.